Alright, in this video I'm going to show you how to get VMware and server installed for class. So I went out and I signed everybody up for a VMware subscription. Now what VMware is, if you're not familiar with it, is a virtual machine hypervisor that we can use to create and install virtual machines on our laptop or desktop computers. So in this class, instead of you wiping out a computer such as your laptop and installing server, what we will do is we will install server kind of on top of your Windows 10 or Windows 11 machine and run it in a virtual environment. So in order to do that, we're going to use again VMware Workstation Pro. I signed everybody up. You should have gotten an email with login information. If you have not received that, let me know, and I can verify that I got you signed up and resend emails if I need to. But inside of that email there should be a link for itacademy.vmware.com, and that will take you to a site that looks similar to this. Let me log out here actually, since I'm on the instructor view. So just refreshing, it should look similar to this. You should have a student login. When you log in as a student, you should see right here something called software products and license keys. Then along the right hand side we have these direct links for software downloads. What we need for our class is VMware Workstation Pro 17, which is the latest as of this video. If there's later versions, go ahead and use that version. Once you come out here, we want Workstation Pro for Windows, assuming you're running Windows, and it will go ahead and it will start a download. We also need the product key for that. So while that's downloading, you can go out back to this page and you can get your 1-year license key. So you can request your license key using this link. Here's what we just downloaded, VMware Workstation Pro 17. So what you do is you request that. If it has you log in again, you can go ahead and log in. Again, you should have gotten this login information. My installer is coming up, so I'm going to hit yes. You should have gotten the login information in an email. My download is done and the installation is starting up. Essentially for this, we're just going to click next, next, next. Going back to the product key, your product key may take between 24 and 48 hours to appear. In my experience, it happens relatively quickly and you get it usually like within an hour, but they do say it can take longer. Another thing to keep in mind is sometimes the product keys might go into the junk or spam inbox. Actually says that right here. So if you haven't received it, like it says here, within 12 hours, it looks like they bumped up their time, 12 hours, then make sure to check in there. But for me, it's usually happened pretty quickly. So right now, again, what's happening is I'm installing VMware Workstation Pro version 17, or whatever the latest is. I'm just going to hit pause and wait for that to come up to the next screen. Alright, my installer gave me a message saying that it requires me to restart my system to finish installing a Microsoft redistributable and then rerun the installer. So I'm going to go ahead and click yes to restart. Okay, so I restarted my computer and I need to restart the download. So if you go into your downloads folder, that's where your VMware download should be. There it is, VMware Workstation Full. Let's double click on it again to restart. It restarts the installation wizard. And I may have mentioned this before, but we're pretty much just going to hit next, next, next all the way through. There's not a whole lot that we need to do in terms of changing options here. I did notice while I restarted, I did get an email with the serial key, so I will be able to put that in during installation. This here says the installer has detected the host Hyper-V or device credential guard enabled. To run VMware Pro on host with Hyper-V or device credential guard enabled, install the hypervisor platform on this host through turn Windows features on or off, or remove Hyper-V role from the system. Check the following checkbox if you want the installer to install it automatically. I would highly recommend just doing that. It will save you a step. I typically add the enhanced keyboard driver, but it's not a big deal if you don't. I usually unjoin the customer experience improvement program because I don't want it to collect extra data. And then next. And for me, I hit upgrade because I had a previous version installed. You guys will just hit install. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this and let it finish the install. Alright, my install has a little bit left to do, but we also need to go and download server. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So go ahead and open up a web browser, and we are going to go to Azure for Education. I'm just doing a Google search because I can never remember the name of the actual website. So here it is, azureforeducation.microsoft.com. azureforeducation.microsoft.com. This does have the /devtools, but I believe if you don't put the /devtools, it will just redirect you to this. Then you can go ahead and sign in. When you sign in, you're just basically going to sign in with your VMware email and your VMware email password. Now once you get signed in here, it should take you to an Azure portal, and along the left hand side you should see software. It should redirect you hopefully to education page already. If you're not on the education page for whatever reason, you might have to do a search for education. But once you're on the education page, along the left hand side you should see software. And then these are all the available pieces of software that you have to use for free. So there's varying things in here, but what we want for this class is Windows Server, and I'm going to use Windows Server 2022 Standard. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it will give you a download link, which I'm clicking on now. And if I click View Key, it will also give me an install key. Okay. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to copy that to the clipboard, and I might even just open up Notepad here and throw it into Notepad in case I need to copy something else later. That way I have it in my clipboard. So as you can see, it's a relatively large download, 5.2 gigs, so it might take a little while. What I'm going to do right now is just minimize this browser. It looks like my VMware Workstation Pro has finished, and so I can license it. So if I have the key, I can plug in the license there, or if you're still waiting for it, you can skip, and you'll have, I believe it's like a 30-day trial or something before you need to get that key in there. It is asking me to restart one more time, so I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I will let my server ISO download and restart this machine. So when I come back, I will have my server downloaded and VMware completely installed and hopefully licensed. I'll be back in a minute. Alright, I am back. I have VMware Workstation Pro installed. I have my Server 2022 ISO downloaded, and I have my keys. So what an ISO is, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically like an image of like a disk. So back in the day when we installed, we used to have like DVDs, and those DVDs you would put into the computer and install your operating system. Well, now not every computer has DVDs or Blu-ray drives, so what they actually do is take an image, and so you can actually see in the name it's the DVD. So this is an image of like a DVD, and so what we can do is we can mount this ISO and install off of using VMware Workstation. Actually, within Windows itself, I can mount the ISO as a DVD drive. So as soon as I click mount on that ISO under my computer here, looks like it's taking a second. So there it mounted, again along the left hand side, my computer, it mounts it as a DVD, and this would actually be like the installer. So you used to boot up off of an actual DVD and install, now we're just able to mount it. And so I'm going to eject. So that's what an ISO is, just an image of a DVD. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up VMware Workstation Pro. I have an icon on my desktop where I could search for it. It's asking me for my CD key, or sorry, my install key. Again, I got my email with this. I'm just going to copy and paste it in. Do not use my key, it will not work. That key is good for one year. Actually, I have 408 days left, it looks like. And so now you should have VMware Workstation Pro installed. Now I have a previous virtual machine, you would not see this on yours. So what you are going to do is go to File, you're going to choose a new virtual machine. The virtual machine wizard will come up. We are going to choose typical. It's asking us how we want to install our virtual machine. Well, we downloaded an ISO, so we're going to choose installer disk image. And where mine is inside of my downloads currently. So browse to my downloads. There's my Server 22 ISO. It detects that it's Server 2022, and it's going to do what's called an easy install for us. So I'm going to hit next. During the easy install, it's going to ask for our product key. I got that from the Azure for Education. And now it's asking us to personalize, actually the version first, it's standard, and then personalize Windows. What I would like you guys to do for this is put in administrator. And I'm not going to give it a password. Okay, so I'm just going to hit next. Don't use your name or anything else here, otherwise you're going to get logged into server with a non-admin user and you're going to run into issues when we try to install roles and whatnot. So put in here administrator, make sure it's Server 2022 standard in your key. Go ahead and hit next. We'll give it a name. I'm just going to append fall, or actually it's spring. As of the recording for this video. If you want to put that in there, you can. Or maybe it's for CSA 330 or whatever class you're in. If you want to label it, you can. And then another thing here is if you try to create a virtual machine inside of OneDrive, so if you're syncing your documents into OneDrive like I currently am, you usually run into problems. And so what I'm going to do for the location of this virtual machine is I'm going to go under computer, if I can find it. There it is, or this PC I should say. And under my C drive. And under my C drive, I'm going to create a new folder called Virtual Machines, or VMs. It doesn't look like I have one, so I'm going to make a new folder. And that's where I'm going to put it. So again, usually if you try to create it underneath your documents or OneDrive, you typically run into issues when you turn on OneDrive and start syncing. So what I'm doing is just under my C drive, creating a new folder called Virtual Machines, and then hitting next. It's asking for the size of the disk. Whatever the default is here should be fine, 60 gigs. I'm going to hit next, and then I'm going to hit finish. Okay, what this will do is, I'm going to uncheck that, I don't want to see this anymore. So what this is going to do now is start up the virtual machine. easy install. It's going to start to boot off of our ISO, our DVD disk image, and do my installation. So setup is starting. There really shouldn't be a whole lot for us to change or do here other than just kind of hit next, next, next. One thing to take note of, and I probably should have done this during the creation of the VM, is the amount of RAM that you are giving to your virtual machine. So if I go into the settings of this virtual machine, currently I am giving this virtual machine 2 gigs of RAM, which is like the absolute minimum for a server. Well, total on my system, I have 12 gigs of RAM. Maybe you have 8, maybe you have 16. So what I would like to do is to bump that up to 4. And again, I probably should have done this during the creation of the VM, but you can always adjust it later. And this will just give you a little bit better performance so it's not underpowered. In a real server, if you were having like a real physical server, you would have probably minimum 32 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of RAM. You know, it's not uncommon to see close to a terabyte of RAM with the server. So I just bumped up the RAM. From here on out, this machine will get more memory. I'm going to hit pause here, let this finish up, and I'll come back when the installation is done. Alright, so my install has finished, and so you can see here that I have server installed running as a virtual machine. If I would need proof for class that I have an installation, what I could do is I could just take a screenshot of this whole screen here showing I have VMware and server installed, and that would suffice. What it's doing right now is it's installing something called VMware Tools. VMware Tools will allow you to, say, copy and paste back and forth between your physical machine, called your host operating system, and your guest operating system. It also allows you to resize this virtual machine window and have the display and resolution automatically resized to whatever shape and size that you resized it to. So go ahead and let that install. It gives you a much better experience. I believe that should be all for this video. If you run into issues, let me know. But again, basic process of this is to go to the IT Academy for VMware, which you should have gotten a login through email for. Download VMware Workstation Pro. That might require several reboots. Then go to Azure for Education and download the ISO for server. We chose Server 2022 Standard for this particular video. Once you have that downloaded, you can come into VMware Workstation Pro. Under File, do a new virtual machine. Select to install the virtual machine using an ISO. And then you're ready to go. Oh, actually, one other thing here I will mention is after you do a complete install and everything is up and running how you want, what I would recommend doing is to do a snapshot. So one of the beauties of virtual machines and Workstation Pro is you can create a snapshot of your virtual machine. And what this will allow you to do is to roll back to that snapshot at any given point in time. So if you want to go back to a fresh, clean install where no roles or configurations have been installed, you can do that through your snapshots. So that's right up here along the top. I can choose Take a Snapshot. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Make sure that all the installs are done here. I'm going to close out this server manager. We'll be in here a lot for class. So I have it to the state that I want. Come up here, hit a snapshot, and I'm going to call this so it's got no roles, configurations, or updates. The brand new install. And then I'm going to hit take snapshot, and then it took that snapshot. So now what I could do is I can come in here and I could make changes, and how I'm going to make a change is I'm just going to add a couple things to the desktop. And maybe I went and installed a program or a role or something. Now I decide, oh, I didn't want to do that, or I want to roll back to fresh clean. So I have these options right here. Revert this machine back to that snapshot. So it's reverting any changes and things that may have happened. Might take a minute or two. It's going to restart and restore the VM. If you get this message, typically what I do is just don't show that hint again. But anyways, it restored. Those things I added to the desktop are no longer there. Anything I had done, it would no longer be there. When you're done with your virtual machine, you either can power it down like you normally do a real machine, or what I like to do is just hit pause, and I will pause that virtual machine in that state. So when I come back, I can just resume it, and it picks it. Just let me know. Thanks for watching.